Fall is all about cozy comforts, and with Hero Bread, you can enjoy all your favorites and still hit your health goals. From breakfast bagels and meal prepped enchiladas to mouth-watering burgers and cheesy noodles. You won't believe Hero Bread's options have 0 to 5 grams net carbs and are high fiber from the taste and texture. And right now, Hero Bread is offering 10% off your order. Go to hero.co and use code FALL25 at checkout. That's FALL25 at hero.co. All figures are per serving of Hero Bread. Contains 2 to 18 grams of fat per serving. See the product nutrition panels on hero.co for more information.
Hey everybody, I'm Mikey Andersen, and this is Fantasy Avenue, where each week we talk about everything you need to know in the world of fantasy football. Hello, and welcome back to Fantasy Avenue, your road to fantasy football victory. I'm Mikey Andersen, and welcome to the Week 12 Insight in Week 11 Review episode. All right, so we got a little rundown of the episode. Going to start with just the week in review, talk about a little bit of personal stuff that happened with me in fantasy and just things around the NFL. Then we'll get into some studs and some duds real quick, and then I want to talk about more waiver wire selections and specifically what you want to do with injuries coming up and how you want to manage injuries as we go into the playoffs. And then finally, we'll talk about a little bit of injuries and we'll wrap it up. Before I start, I just want to say, if you are interested in coming on the podcast, if you like to talk about football, honestly, and either you know me or you're follow me on Instagram, the Fantasy Avenue, if you don't follow me already. But anybody who's interested in just talking, they don't even have to know. You don't have to play fantasy football. It would obviously be helpful. But if you just know a little bit about football and you just like to talk, honestly, reach out to me, see me in school, whatever. Let me know that you want to, and we can get you on. It can be on a phone call, or you can come down to the office. But yeah, anybody who wants to, feel free to join up. I want to get more guests in the show. I've already talked to a couple kids, but if you just want to talk about football and just see what's it about, you can talk for 2 minutes on a phone call if that's all you want to talk about. You can talk about your favorite team. You can talk about your favorite player. Whatever you want to do, just let me know, because I'm super excited to get people on talking with me. All right, let's go into the week review first. You know, I love to always start with my Broncos. Well, love is not the right word. I do not like to start with my Broncos, and yet I always do. We took an L to the Raiders in overtime. I'm sure 3 people out there watched it because no one likes the Raiders or the Broncos. So yeah, there's a good 3 people who are watching that game. And golly, if you're a Broncos fan, oh my God, I can't talk about them anymore. I'm going to make a vow. Let me say my piece, and then I will make my vow. So stay tuned for the vow, everybody. Lost another game in overtime to the 2-7 Raiders. Yep, you heard it right, folks. The Raiders have won more games against the Broncos than against anyone else in the NFL combined this year for them. In overtime, the Broncos games have ended in a 1-score game. 8 of their 9 games, if I'm not mistaken, or 9 of their 10 games, something like that. Oh my Lord. I don't know what to say anymore. We can't finish. We can't score. We finally score, and our defense does not great. But offenses and defenses should be able to make mistakes, and coaching and just ability to overcome adversities should be a huge portion of a team's identity, right? Teams like the Bills who can, obviously they didn't do it against the Vikings, but they strive and they come back next week and they go firing and they go beat the Browns. There's an ability to deal with adversity when you have good players that outshines your bad moments, right? And the Broncos just do not have that. I don't know. I can't. So here's my vow. I know everybody was super interested in hearing what my vow is. I will not talk about the Broncos or about any, if there's a player like Greg Dulcich that I'm going to talk about on the Broncos, I will not say the Broncos ever again on this podcast until the Broncos win a game convincingly, until they win a game by more than 1 score. I will refer to them as the word. Greg Dulcich, he plays for that team, okay? I will not refer to them anymore on this podcast until they can win a game, because holy cow, it's just turned into a that team hate podcast right now. Oh my Lord. Let's get into something else because they really annoy me. God, let's look. There were some good games, as I talked about. The Browns showed their ability to bounce back. Justin Fields fell down to earth a little bit more, still had a great game, 21. I actually ended up starting him over Lamar Jackson because I just had a feeling. Like, Lamar is the quarterback ranked 6, and yet his last 5 games have been, even more than that. He hasn't had a crazy week since week 3. He's only been in the 20 points once since week 3, and he's still the 6th-ranked quarterback. I don't even know how that works. Quarterbacks are having a pretty average kind of down year in terms of crazy scores and consistent 30-point games. I mean, Lamar Jackson's the 6th-ranked quarterback, and he doesn't even have consistent 20-point games. So, yeah, but, I mean, Baltimore showed that they can beat a Panthers team, so good for them, I guess. Philadelphia bounced back against the Eagles. You guys probably saw the celebrations of the Eagles of the Eagles coach on the sideline after they beat the basically coachless Colts. That's a little interesting, but fly Eagles fly, if you know what I mean. Chiefs took a nice win over the Chargers, and I saw a crazy thing. I'll talk about Travis Kelce. I don't even know, but I'm just assuming that he led tight ends in points last week. Yeah, I saw a thing that Travis Kelce scored, in the last 2 games against the Chargers. Travis Kelce scored the game-winning touchdown on the same route against the same team. He ran a crossing route twice in the last 2 games and won the game on each of those routes. It's not no fantasy relevance there, but it's just something interesting, I think. San Fran blew out the Cardinals. Dallas absolutely destroyed the Vikings. Wow, Tony Pollard is a legit player in this league right now. Detroit, it was a big upset week. Detroit gets a win over the Giants. Yeah, I don't know. That's about it. There were some bye weeks. Green Bay once again took an L. Welcome to the area with me. Green Bay Packer fans. You can come in here. I have some Packer fans. Shout out Reese Dahlke. Come on, boy. Come on the podcast. Talk about it. Talk about your hate of the Packers and my hate of that team. Okay, because I'm ready for it. I'm ready to release that anger. And on the note of Reese Dahlke, sir, you've done something dirty this week. I'm all about trading, and I'm all about for getting the best value. I'm all about for making it seem as if who you're giving away is better for them than who they're giving you. When in reality, the person you're giving away doesn't even matter. I'm all for that. But when Reese's brother Carter is kind of giving up on his team, even though he's 4-7, still has a chance to make the playoffs. He's the 5th team in our league. He's kind of giving up on his team. Reese and Carter conspire to trade all of Carter's good players to Reese. Now, our league, I'm not certain, but I'm pretty sure our league doesn't have that thing where you can decline trades. So, of course, those trades go through. Now Reese is going to consistently score about 170 points. His team isn't insane, but it's just there's just so many big name players. He just has, I believe he has a better team, or maybe as good of a team. I believe my ESPN league with some other of my friends is probably my best team. It's stacked. I have multiple good receivers and running backs. My whole team is just a level above the competition. Same with another league with my friend Brady in it. These teams are legit, and I'm scoring crazy amount of points each week. And Reese's team, through trading, through an inhonest trade right there, it rips my heart out, okay? Fantasy is a gentleman's game. Fantasy is a game about integrity, about compassion. Fantasy is not a game to take advantage of the situation you've been put in. It gets me teary. That's all I'm going to say about that. I'm all for trading, but trading in a league that other players cannot decline it. I mean, if you conspire with your friend or your brother to trade all their good players to you, and it somehow gets past the league because they can all vote and they just don't see it, they don't pay attention, that is not your fault. You took advantage of a system that they could have righted and they didn't. But if there's no system in place, it hurts my soul. It hurts my soul. Let's move on. It's been a tough episode. This is going to be a tough episode for me. I see the Instagram caption right now. It was a tough episode. Okay, keep your eye out for that. The Fantasy Avenue. If you have not already followed, you will see that. You'll see that caption. Let's get into it. Let's get into some fantasy relevance. Why don't we? We're gonna start out with the studs and duds. Get into some waiver wire additions and what you do about injuries. I hope you guys saw. I talked about the tight end. I posted on Instagram. Hopefully that helped you guys out. Let's talk about that first. Let's talk about my tight end opinions first. The 4 guys I mentioned last week, see how they did. I haven't consistently looked at all 4 and made sure that what the advice I gave was good. This is the make or break of my podcast right here. Yeah, I'm going to feel the burn, whether these guys do good or not. And you know what? I'm all for it. There's going to be no editing from here to the end of this segment. We're just going to go down the list, see where they scored, see if the advice I gave was good. And you know what? It was okay. I'll give my advice an okay. You done all right, Mikey. The 4 guys, honestly, you can't expect crazy scores, right, out of tight ends that you find on the bench, on the waivers, excuse me. I was looking for some 10-point performances out of these guys. Obviously, Travis Kelce, I'll get to him when I talk about the duds. Maybe I'll start with tight ends and go back up. That should be fun. The tight end dud, obviously, Travis Kelce. He scored 35 against the Chargers. I've talked about him a little bit. George Kittle had a breakout game with 24, back to like vintage George. Austin Hooper, Pat Freiermuth, and Dawson Knox rat out the top 5. It was a high-scoring week of tight ends. But number 5 only had 14, right? So a good game for a tight end, especially a waiver tight end. A good game is 10 points, and unfortunately, the guys I said did not completely do that. Dalton Schultz, who I was the highest on in a game that Dallas scored 40 points, only got what? Let me look. I only got 5. Only got 5.2, coming off 2 big weeks. Like, I don't know what happened there. He just had 3 small catches, and he had a couple red zone targets, but no red zone touches. It happens. I'm still high on Dalton Schultz, but it's a little weird. Trey McBride, his first game with a starting role, 5.4. He did okay. Not super happy, not super unhappy about that. And then Cole Kmet above him with 6.5. That was a more risky pick in terms of boom or bust. But I really expected Dalton Schultz to do better, and I'm high on him compared to the rest. The best guy that I mentioned was Greg Dulcich with 7, and Greg Dulcich is different. The whole lot of the Broncos offense. Oh shoot, I just said the Broncos. Oh crap, I just said it again. Fantasy gods, please forgive me. Please forgive me. The whole part of that team's offense. Wow. Yes, the whole part of that team's offense. Greg Dulcich is a big part. The last couple of weeks he's had a little bit less, but he's consistently getting 5 receptions. He's not getting a lot of yards. I don't know. He gets a lot of catches and he gets a lot of chances, but he doesn't get a lot of yards. And that's where Greg Dulcich, I think, like, it should be known that Greg Dulcich in the last game is a different situation. Greg Dulcich, he had I think 2 big catches called back from penalties, which is that team's big problem. A big problem of the ones that we will not speak of. A big problem is their penalties. But Greg Dulcich had probably 10 points taken off due to penalties. So I'm honestly higher on Greg Dulcich than any of the other guys. Yeah. If Greg Dulcich is available to you right now, I'm starting Greg this week in a league. I'm dropping Cole Kmet, or I'm dropping Dalton. If you have Dalton Schultz, I would keep Dalton Schultz and pick up Greg Dulcich's edge of bench, because I think people will pick up Greg. But if you have Cole Kmet or Trey McBride, Greg Dulcich is available, and Greg Dulcich is ready to show you that he's a baller. So go grab that baller. From you to me, go grab that baller. Somebody that I haven't really talked about, and a big tight end, has been Juwan Johnson. He started the season very poorly, but in his last 3 games, he scored over 10 in each one, 12, 15, and 13. Maybe pay a little bit of attention to him. I mean, honestly, with all these like tight end questions, you're just trying to find consistent points, and if he shows consistency, in the last 3 weeks, then maybe snag him. Honestly, I'm strongly considering snagging him over Cole Kmet right now, with Greg Dulcich taken in my league. I'll come back to that one, because that's an interesting idea right there. But the tight ends are going to score how tight ends are going to score. It's going to be hard, but I believe in you guys. Let's go to kickers and defense real quick. That was my tight end spiel. We'll go into waivers later, but let's full on get this done. Let's full on get the let's get this done. Let's get this done. Let's go into some kickers, because there was a weirdly high-scoring games for the kickers this week. Let's go into defense, because there were some weirdly high-scoring games for the defenses this week. and then we'll get into wide receivers, running backs, and finally quarterbacks. Kickers, I gotta talk about both Brett Maher, I think is how you pronounce his name, on the Cowboys with 22. That's insane. And Tyler Bass, who I actually had in multiple leagues, I believed in the Bills' offense with 21. There's not so much I can talk about kickers really, but they're ballers. They are absolute mauler ballers, and I don't know. I mean, they know how to kick a ball through the post, so. They're 1 and 2. I mean, like, that happens when kickers have a big week, similar to tight ends. Now they're the number 1 and number 2 overall ranked kickers on the season in terms of points. And Brett Maher is available in my league. So would you look at that? Now I'm considering picking him up. Let's move to some defenses. Not a defense that really stood out, but the Commanders, Cowboys, Ravens, and Patriots with 19, 18, 18, and 17 points. Defenses ball. Defenses are valuable. Defenses are who you want. And now the Cowboys are the number 1 ranked defense in the league right now. Don't ask me how, but they are. So don't ask me how. Well, wait. Actually, I mean, scratch that. I did see a thing on Instagram. They have double the amount of sacks that they had at this point a year ago. They are an improving defense. It's not some lucky pick sixes that's got them into the top spot, like sometimes happens. Like they consistently generate sacks and pressures, and that gets you points as a defense. Let's go to wide receivers. The wide receiver ballers of the week. Got to talk about Oh, God, he played against the team. I forgot about that. Yep, got to talk about Davante Adams. That was a weird ending to the game against the team that will not be named. But he balled out. Patrick Surtain. For everybody saying Patrick Surtain blew that coverage, it was a zone coverage, everybody. Zone coverage. Davante Adams was not his man. He had a safety over top. I don't know who the safety was. Pretty sure it was Kareem Jackson. It's not Pat Surtain's fault, guys. Come on. He's still a baller. But Davante Adams, he played amazing. Amari Cooper with 31. Great to see that kind of a coming out game. Josh Palmer, T. Higgins, and Deebo Samuel rounded out the top 10, all with 20 points. A good high-scoring weekend for the receivers. Christian Watson balled out again on the Packers. He's a good waiver addition I'll talk about. But somebody I really want to talk about, I said a name a few seconds ago, Josh Palmer. That was so weird. With both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams coming back in the same week. And he goes, Josh Palmer, their now third wide receiver, downgraded again because of the other players, gets 30 points. Granted, the other guys didn't last very long in the game. Pretty sure Mike Williams left pretty early. But still, like, the amount of people starting Josh Palmer, I guarantee, was like a quarter of what it's been the last couple of weeks because they know the big names are coming back. So it's awesome for Josh Palmer, and I know that's gonna earn a couple starts in a couple leagues. It's not gonna earn a start in my league because I got Jamar Chase and Christian Kirk, ballers. But it's gonna earn a start in some leagues, and I'm happy for him. I don't know him personally, but I'm still a happy guy. I'm looking for any busts. CeeDee Lamb with only 7. That's unfortunate. I mean, wide receivers have down weeks. Honestly, not a lot of guys had down weeks that are high up in the names. I mean, yeah, I'm looking down the list. Like, not a lot of guys that got held to absolutely nothing. Mike Williams, obviously, but he got hurt. Yeah, all right, sick. Let's go to running backs. If you're confused, if your OCD is spasming right now, we're going in backwards order, guys. Don't worry. We're still going to get through everything. Don't worry. The number 1 running back of last week, Tony Pollard. What a guy. I did not see that coming. I had him on the bench in 2 of my leagues. 36.9 points sitting on my bench because I thought with Zeke coming back, his load would be... I mean, no one saw it. Nobody saw his freaking, for the 40 to 3 point game. Nobody saw that coming by the Cowboys, but still, awesome performance. Literally, he's one of my favorite players that's not on my team. Okay, I love how he plays. I want him to get a chance so bad because he doesn't get a lot of carries. He's very similar. Who is he similar to? There's guys. There's smaller guys. Philip Lindsay, back in the day. On my team. There's smaller guys who the teams don't really feel like they can get carries, but the few times they do get like 20 carries, they go for like 30 fantasy points. I really hope Tony Pollard doesn't kind of fizzle out and he finally he gets a starting running back role or at least like a 2-down back role, Like maybe he doesn't need to play on first down if it's just going to be a run up the middle, but put him in as a solid option. I really feel like it should be Pollard then Zeke, not Zeke then Pollard on that team. And Cowboys, like executives, coaches, they're so like exact about how they do it and so like confined that they don't change. Jerry Jones, he doesn't even consider. I don't know. The Cowboys like organization in that way is messed up. They still find ways to put 40 points on one of the best teams in the league, So I'm not like bashing on them, but I'm just saying Tony deserves a role. Samaje Perine, don't know how that happened either. Like Joe Mixon got hurt, and then Perine comes up and gets 3 touchdowns in a game. Boo, that's crazy. Like if Joe Mixon is not, I want to say this right now, if Joe Mixon is not playing, Perine is a must pick up. And I'll talk about him in a few minutes. He is a must pick up. I've already said I'm going to talk about the injuries. I'm going to make a post probably about it on the Instagram. Like there's guys that you got to pick up due to injuries, and Perine is a must. Just make that a sound bit. Anybody want to make that a sound bit for me? Put it on a picture of like, I don't know. I'll make a meme about it. I don't know. I sound like a dad right now. Let's just move on. Najee Harris with 27, Derrick Henry with 25, Jamal Williams with 24. 3 guys playing well. Jamal Williams playing awesome. I don't know why. I don't know what happened. I haven't heard anything really about Swift in terms of like injury or anything. I'm looking right now. I'm trying to see why. Just why? He's been listed as fully healthy for 2 weeks in a row. So now Williams is like the number 1 running back in that. I don't know. I mean, it's awesome because Jamal Williams is a waiver wire pickup for a lot of people, and he's playing awesome. So it's cool. It's cool to see that. But I don't really know exactly why it's happening, at least right now. I'm not sure. Whatever. Let's move on. Let's go to the bus. Let's go to the bus. Because the players I just named, I mean, like, you expect that out of Derrick Henry, right? What you don't expect, look at that freaking intro into the bus. What you don't expect is Dameon Pierce to get 3.7 the first game that he plays for my team after I traded for him. Dameon, come on, dude. Like, man, now that stings. Now that stings. And Dante Foreman with 2.4. I just don't know about him. He's so inconsistent. I'm scared to start him. Like, listen to his last games. 1.9. That was with Christian McCaffrey, but I'm just saying it to add some sting. So he gets 1.9, then 16, 31. Looks like he's going to be a star. Goes down to 4.1. Then next week, I'm not going to start him, and he gets 19. And I'm like, oh. And now this week, I made a good choice to not start him again. He gets 2.4. Now he's playing that good Broncos defense. I would not start Dante Foreman, and I would just keep my eye out to figure out his situation. Because playoff football, you do not want to get screwed by an inconsistent running back. If you have a good player on the bench that should have been playing well, I don't know. Inconsistency is the most scary thing because it hurts. It's the most painful thing when you should have beat somebody and one of your players who's super good does bad, and then when you have players on the bench who are consistent, and then you have a good player who's inconsistent, and that inconsistent player is worse than your bench players. Your bench player gets a solid 10, and your inconsistent player gets 2. And you lose by 5, Obviously, I'm freaking speaking from past experiences. Obviously, I'm speaking from past experiences right now. It's a painful thing, okay? Let's just go to quarterbacks. Once again, this episode is painful. Quarterbacks, no one even in the 30. As I've said, low-scoring kind of season for the quarterbacks, week for the quarterbacks. There's always big boomers, but not this week. Joe Burrow with 26, Patrick Mahomes with 26, Jimmy Garoppolo with 25, a little bit of surprising. Brissett and Jones with 24. When we get to that point, it's not like as surprising because Brissett just had a good game. It's not like, whoa, he's in the top 3 because he only scored 24 points. It's really about the bus. Russell Wilson, once again, with only 10.6, whatever. Russ is going to be like Russ. And he had the most average game for a quarterback fantasy points I've ever seen. Like, dude, we could have won that game if he just did something. But he goes for 247 and nothing. 8 rushing yards, no touchdowns, no anything. Just he threw the ball. 286, or 247, excuse me. Pretty good week. Threw 24 for 31. I mean, that's just a completely average scoreline, and that earns you 10 points in fantasy. You can't do good if you're average. Um, whoa, I have not seen this. This is crazy. Kirk Cousins, I know you guys are starting it with all that bling, with all that hype. I know there's some starters out there, and he gets 1.2. Oh, I'm excited to see who lost that week. Like, you know what? I know one of you guys did. Maybe I know. I don't know. I know somebody in that big wide world started him, and they crying right now. So you know what? What's tough is tough. That's what I always like to say. All right, there's our boom and bust for the week. Yeah, I don't know. Not a lot to say about that. Whatever. Let's go. I'm really excited to talk about this portion. This is the waiver wire portion, and specifically, what do you do when dealing about injuries, and who do you want to get as injuries, develop and take over a season in some way, and then also, they're going to end up affecting you in the playoffs, and that's the most important thing, is knowing how to deal with your playoffs. So let's get right into it. We're gonna go to the stats from, actually, how do I want to do this? I'm just gonna go to Week 12 current, and I'm just gonna be looking for any players, any available players that I'm seeing in the majority of leagues that I really think you should pick up right now. One guy in specific, it's got to be Latavius Murray. I know, I mean, I seem biased and unbiased for the team that will not be named because I talk about a lot of the players. But Latavius Murray with fumbles a lot, Melvin Gordon off the team. Latavius Murray's gonna have a big role, and I'm excited. I haven't picked up on my bench in a couple leagues because I'm excited to see where that goes. If you have space for running backs, go ahead and snag him. Isaiah Pacheco, I think is how you pronounce his name. I've talked about him a little bit. A good 10-point performance. He's got 16 and 15 carries in back-to-back weeks. No touchdowns, and let me look at red zone touches. Only had 3 red zone touchdown touches in the last 2 weeks, even though he had 31 touches overall. So it's a little hard in that Chiefs offense, but if you really need somebody, go ahead and grab Pacheco, because he can be a good player. Receivers, Juju Smith-Schuster, I'm not sure if he's coming back, and Curtis Samuel, I'm super excited about him. Those are 2 guys that I love, and they're weirdly available in every league. If it wasn't for me picking them up, like every league I look at, I'm grabbing them because I super like how they play. I like the touches they get on in their offenses. They're guys that freaking Curtis Samuel's the 20th ranked receiver, and he's I'm looking on NFL. Yeah, he's only rostered as a top 20 receiver in an average league. Right? He's rostered in 88% of leagues on NFL Fantasy. In the average NFL Fantasy league, you need 2 or 3, depending on your flex receivers. Plus, I'll just say 4. 2 on your bench, 2 maybe flex. I'll say 4. 4 times 8, which is a small league, is 32. Right? So if there's 32, give or take, 32 receivers in a small league, maybe I'll go 10. I'll go 10 just to make my point bigger. 40 receivers in the average league are not picked up, right? And the wide receiver 20 is available in 88. Now, I'm just going to point it out. I'm in pre-calc as a sophomore. You know what? That's a subtle brag because I know how to do math. And the math there is bad. If you're the 20th ranked receiver and there's 20 guys behind you on average that are picked up and you're only rostered in 88%, that means 1 in 10 leagues has 20 guys picked up in front of him, And 1 in 10 leagues, that could be 1 in 10 of you guys. So check your league for Curtis Samuel because I really like him. Tight ends. Any tight ends we're looking at? I've talked about some tight ends already. Juwan Johnson is definitely my favorite tight end of the week, and I've talked about the other guys last week. So go ahead and go back, rewind that episode, or go to the Instagram post and look at those guys because they still all hold true. Maybe not as hyped as I was last week with their just average performances, but all those things still hold true. You know what? Greg Dulcich is my favorite out of those guys, but you whatever, find consistency at the tight end spot. That's all you can ask for. Anybody else? I'm looking through my teams now. I'm looking for anybody else that I really feel good about. I don't know. You know what? I mean, there's a couple. No one really there. Let's look at my final league here. There's going to be injuries, right? Joe Mixon. Oh, here we go. I almost forgot about that. Wow. Small J. P. Ryan. Joe Mixon is questionable with a concussion. P. Ryan is available. I'm honestly picking up P. Ryan right now in this league because I know I'm not going to play anybody. I'm going to drop Cortland Sutton because I know I have Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin on my bench in front of Court. So I'm going to go find P. Ryan, and I'm going to go pick him up because he's a good player. you know what? Like, what can I say? He's a good player. And I think he's going to do really well. I think he's going to do really well in that offense with finally getting a role, you know. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay, I got him picked up on my team. So yeah, Samaje Perine, probably the main guy for me this week. Yeah. All right, I think that's it. You know, there's a lot of guys that you need to compensate for injuries. There's some guys coming back. You know, awesome to see. Possibly, you know, this isn't guaranteed, but possibly Jamar Chase coming back. That's awesome. Yeah, we'll see what happens because I'm super excited for these big names to come back. And let's go to injuries. You know, this will also help. You know, obviously you can tell I'm a little unorganized. If you didn't know on this podcast, I kind of just go. I just look on my phone for the top scores and I just talk. So sometimes I do get caught in a little bit of like a whirlpool of saying the same thing. Trying to move to my next topic because it's not exactly planned. So obviously I don't have everything planned, but you know what? Maybe that freaking where's that injury news at? You know, obviously I'm still don't know what I'm doing. Let's look at some injuries because I think this will help knowing some waiver wire picks. And well, dude, I forgot to talk about that. Man, I am coming under the Todd Heath syndrome of being completely unorganized while being a podcaster. You know, all jokes aside, Todd, he's the Bomb Snow. He runs Bomb Snow magazine, and they have a podcast too. That's where I do. I don't even know if I've ever talked about this. This is where I do podcasts with an Adam Thorne setup. He does the Joe Rogan Review podcast. You know, shout out my boys. They're super helpful. And anyway, they know as well as anybody that being a podcaster, there's a lot of stuff. It can get unorganized and can get crazy, but it's all about just going and going and going. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just going and going and going. So, you know, I have a planned thing, you know, to like say thank you, I guess. But in a little bit later down the line, once the season's wrapping up. But for now, this is my quick thank you guys for helping me so much. And yeah, obviously I'm a little unorganized, but what happens, happens. And I wanted to talk about, I'm coming out on a Wednesday episode. Like, look at me. Freaking yeah. That's twice in a row. And it's a big deal because Thanksgiving's coming up. Let's go. Hyped to watch a full day of football on a Thursday. And yeah, you're gonna need to hear this next part because this wraps into it. Wide receiver Marquise Brown, he's been out kind of all year with an injury, or all like second half of the year. DeAndre Hopkins is shining in his absence and will continue to shine when he comes back. But Marquise Brown was balling out at the start of the year, and it looks like he's on a pitch count for Sunday's game, which means he'll play a little bit, not a whole lot, but a little bit. Josh Allen, he had a little elbow injury. He's got no injury designation, so you don't need to worry about that. You know, there's going to be a lot of questionable stuff, you know, like next year players at the moment, because that just means they didn't play the whole practice. So, you know, if you're new to fantasy football, that happens, you know, like you don't have to be worried until it says questionable on like Friday or Saturday, because people get banged up and they're not going to play the whole practices, right? Their job, you know, for the week is practice. They're not going to play football for 5 hours each day. You know, they need rest. I mean, it says right here, Dante Foreman, was resting, was limited in practice because he was resting because of his freaking workload and the injuries the running backs get. So don't worry about that. Justin Fields is cleared to return to practice after suffering a, quote, separated shoulder with a partially torn ligament. Wow. I wouldn't start. I don't know if I would start him this week, you know, if he's fully cleared, because he's still a baller. But like in the league I talked about earlier, where I have excuse me, I had to think about that. Lamar Jackson and him. You know, I'm probably gonna start Lamar because Lamar's still a baller. I have a feeling he's gonna return back to his awesome weeks. So we'll see what happens. Joe Mixon still in concussion protocol. Big news for Samaje Perine. You know what? And Jamar Chase is returning to practice, so that's exciting. Ezekiel Elliott, a full participation, does not have an injury designation for Thursday's game. Still freaking start Tony Pollard. Like anything I said about Zeke taking away from Tony Pollard's carries and stuff, that just goes out the window. Like I don't know what I was talking about back then. You know, that was naive, Mikey. I am now the grown Mikey. This isn't really fancy relevant because nobody has this dude, but Zach Wilson benched as a starting quarterback. Mike White, who he's had great games in the past, he's going to start. Zach just couldn't put it together against the Patriots that he needed to prove that he could, because that was, he just needed to prove that he could step up. I don't know. I believe he's going to get another chance, but he has to show that he can step up against good teams to give the Jets a chance to like contend with the Bills for their division and stuff, and he hasn't shown that. So it's Leonard Fournette questionable in the game. Doesn't look like it's going to be a not questionable. It'll be a surefire questionable. So keep an eye on that. And yeah, there we go. That's the week. Hope it helped. Rewind the episode if you need to. Go back, find your guys for this week, because injuries are going to happen, and I'm super excited to see what happens. Football. I saw a quote, can't remember it exactly, but it was like, football, the ball is not round. The ball doesn't bounce all the summer. I can't remember, but all I know is anything can happen any given Sunday. So go ahead, find your good guys, and enjoy the next week of NFL football. The season's kind of winding down, but it's still in full swing, and the playoffs are upon us. So go out, do your duty, and have a good Thanksgiving, everybody. Super happy you stopped in. Thank you, and yeah, see you next week. Peace.